and a metal filter. They're both the same type, like metal aluminum. Looks like the cowboys used it or something. You don't know. I mean, it definitely tastes very similar to cowboy coffee, which if you like cowboy coffee, then it's going to be the thing for you. But for me, I'm not a big cowboy coffee fan. I will drink it when there is no other choice, because I am a fucking coffee fan, that's for sure. But it was not better than instant coffee, which I have to say is quite the thing to say, because instant coffee is, well, instant coffee, and is pretty much the lowest grade of coffee in my eyes. But apparently, this form of cowboy coffee was even worse than that. I'm sure that there is a cowboy coffee that has a certain organic quality to it or phenomenal tasting nature to it that would even transcend the cowboy coffee from the colander tin aluminum funnel thing that she bought at Goodwill as a package deal. They were taped together. They were a package. It was like as if it was meant to be that. Oddly enough. But we instead decided to use our amazing minds of innovation, the amazing way in which we have come through evolution, and that we have understood through the experiential quality of perspective given to us from this modern age, that maybe, just maybe, the coffee filter for the drip coffee maker may work within our funnel system. As we thought about the plastic contraption and how it be simply, literally, just a fancy form of funnel occurring there, just little dots and holes, and usually actually just one center hole in which it drips in a conglomeration. Geez, our funnel may even work better. So, using the funnel system, I can't say that it worked better or worse, but it certainly worked equally. So there we are. Drinking the greatest cup of coffee ever, given to us, provided to us by our PA, our wonderful lover and friend, our equal friend and partner in this amazing conglomeration of phenomenal unity, harmony, and expression of limitless consciousness that has ever been occurring within us. I really appreciate her so very dearly and amazingly. I can't express how much she is the most phenomenal gift and blessing to my journey ever to exist, and how appreciative I will always forever be, no matter how it is we're ending or beginning the phenomenalness of our relationship as it exudes forward into the amazing nowness of our positionings. But so wonderful is it to be able to be the guide and the friend and have her as a guide and a friend to me as well, as she doesn't see how she's guiding me, so it's harder for her to see how she's teaching. And it's harder for me to say she's a direct teacher because she's unable to directly teach me in a certain sense. But in another sense, she is the most direct teacher, as you all are. And so I receive the most direct teachings from everything always. And so I am very grateful to have somebody with me and can't wait till we come into the amazing understanding that comes into the phenomenal embodiment of these things much more truly and purely, that we both come into the awareness and see. As so many things fall before our faces as we say this. And so it was almost like all of consciousness came down as Awa in the movie Avatar, and there were all these amazing seeds flying around her, but it was a tree, a leaf, a butterfly, an insect, another one, and just all these amazing things just falling just there to show the amazing, beautiful, holy grail that is this space of giver and receiver, this space that is no space that rests between us, as there is no space between us at all in any way, no real depth occurring. But here we are, limitlessly expressing one to the other as two neurons in this amazing biological system of expression that's existing in all these multiplicity of expressions. Wow. Reflections, ways in which consciousness has embodied itself for the benefit of itself in every way possibly, providing itself movement into freedom, into liberation. So amazing to see this always constantly reflecting in every way. And having the agitations and harshnesses and all of these things coming in provided to be able to see and learn and grow and come into a much more phenomenal centering as we've been able to move through so many entire cycles and chord shapes of expression. As before, we'd have a person come and we'd get to this place in stagnation and it'd be a deflection. Boom. Maybe a phenomenal wisdom and reflection would come through, a phenomenal light language and code would happen, and it'd hit their being, but it'd be time for integration. They'd have to bounce away from me and come back later. And this was good, but it wasn't hard. It wasn't easier for me to see, really, consistently. I like a persistent focus because I'm here 100% present. I never leave presence. I never leave focus. And so for something to not leave focus with me has been just the greatest utter teaching, to be able to see myself reflected so constantly. and to be able to see how it's been affecting them presently, simultaneously. This was like for me in work. I always like jobs that I would see the progress immediately. So I like carpentry and I like building, I like remodeling, I like demolition, I liked any kind of handyman work because by the end of the day you were complete with the job you set about in the beginning of the day. And so it was wonderful. You're like, okay, here's this frame, there's nothing on it, now we drywall it. Oh my God, look at this now. Look at all the drywall, the tape, the mud, everything has been dried and sanded and perfect and finished and just, oh wow, there's going to be paint on this wall soon and it's going to look like a house, and it was looking like a giant empty room before, but now there's a kitchen and now there's a closet and now there's this and now there's that, and it's like wow, but it looked like nothing, a pile of empty wood or scrap wood or whatever it was, and we cut it, we compiled it, we measured it, we taped it, we measured it, we nailed it, we put it in place, we did all these things. Now look at this, wow. And then we even swept it. Look, it was so dirty and now we swept it. Wow, it's so clean afterwards. So it's really wonderful to have somebody stay with me. Other people that come to me, they're kind of like a business thing or something, It's like, okay, we've started this out, or like doing the stock market or something. Okay, I've invested $20 in this item. Let's see if it rises. Okay, now it's worth $23 a share, or it was worth $20 a share. Okay, now it's worth $24 a share. Oh, now it's back. It's $18 a share now. Okay, we're losing. Oh, we're back up to $30 a share. This is really, oh, we're down to -2 I owe on this share. Oh my God, this is really tough. Oh, we're back up to 40. Oh my goodness, this is really difficult. And so it's quite the game with other people, and you never know when you're going to find out too. It's like doing the stock market when you don't have a cell phone or a computer. So you're like, I wonder how my stocks are. Did I win the lottery today? What were the numbers? Oh my gosh, what's going on? What's going on? A month down the line, you reach a guy with a computer. Hey, can you check my stocks? Oh geez. Oh geez. Oh geez. What even happened during this time? Why did it get to this place? Oh wow. What happened during this time? Why did it get to that place? Oh wow. Ooh. Yeah. All right. Well, good. I guess that's the gist for that. Okay, well, we'll give that to that, and then give that to that, and then give that to that, and then give some of that to that. Oh, that wants more of that? Okay, I'll give a little bit more of that. Yeah, maybe we actually, this is doing so good. We'll stay with this for a little bit longer. A few days we'll stay with this computer, okay. These other ones are kind of, stagnating. They're just doing their thing. We'll just wait for those, okay. This one, we got to this part. I don't really think we can do any more with this, all right. Hopefully we find a computer sometime soon. Who knows? Okay, goodbye. Love you. But this time, the computer's always with me. And we're making constant progress. And it's wonderful. We have this. Maybe we have like a drop in stock for like a little bit of time. But then we rise so quickly in stock because of that drop in stock. It's just like, oh, this is wonderful, So it's been, again, the most amazing blessing. And I just wanted to bring y'all into this amazing teaching as well. So phenomenal. Eventually, we're going to have you talk with her. She'll tell you what's been going on. She's just now learning this. She'll tell you what's been going on for her experience. It'll be like kind of like a video dialogue or diary, It'll be really beautiful. Maybe we'll start a new video so that you can access it more easily than having to find it in the middle of one of these. Or maybe we'll do it right in the middle so that you do have to come and focus and find, whatever, kind of making you sift through things more often. Whatever it is, I really like ease of transfer. I'm a efficiency guy, so, if I would desire that kind of an efficiency in programming, then I guess I would desire that to also be given to anybody that I'm having received from me as well. As you give to yourself, you give to others. It's a really amazing process, and I do love how this expression moves through all kinds of different story dialogues, but it also comes into the very truth of non-duality and equanimity and the effortlessness of expression, and that it also is constantly sewing in that, because even though we may see the more exotic, Eastern cultures to be spouting amazing wisdoms through their phenomenal geometries and synchronicity and languages, we believe they have the most sacred culture and language typically, which we do that with every other language, even Spanish or some of the more new languages that are more like our language we decide is more exotic or beautiful. But that really is reflective of our own judgment of our own language. Our language is quite beautiful. If you start looking at how amazingly versatile it is, and all the different accents and the abilities to take on chord shapes of other languages, the ease of transfer and learning other languages, We really have an amazing poetry quality as well, a phenomenal way to speak in syllable structure and politeness with one another that also brings in a great amount of ability to be specific and literal with things that can bring to great precise focus what it is that we're meaning to transfer informationally with one another. So maybe why it's maybe more one of the languages of science, but it's been wonderful. And the politenesses and the proprieties, I believe that these are really wonderful things in synchronicity that bring a respect and development to language that can really bring honoring to one another in a really certain amazing way. Now, this was for the honoring of kings and royalty previously, to make sure that we were never misspeaking towards one another, thus nobody would cut off our head in our culture. But this has also brought us to an amazing gentleness and ability to just really be present with one another in a way that maybe Russian or some of these other more rough cultures have an inability due to the rudimentary nature of their primal dialogue. They've never really seen the reason to come to these places, maybe because of how long ago it was they were created, or simply the roughness of their culture due to where they grew. I'm not sure. But I am very happy with English, but I'm very happy with all the other cultures because each one of our languages speaks to us specifically. And so I would say your native tongue, or whichever one that you speak with most inside internally, is probably going to be the language in which consciousness most frequently is speaking to you. And if you have many cultures and languages, then I would say consciousness is speaking to you in the multilingual way in which you are speaking to yourself. And it's very beautiful. But I do love English because it does speak to us most specifically as to these contextual chord shapes of what's happening. So it is wonderful that when you sing Sanskrit and all these other things, it hooks you with the line of sacredness, because this is what you are hooking to yourself. You see it to be this sacredness, and so it is constantly hooking you to this sacredness. If you were to be able to see your own language as this, your own expression as this, then it would hook you to the same feeling of sacredness. It would be so beautiful. Now, these things of happiness, when I say happy, it hooks me to the feeling of happy. When I say sad, it hooks me to the feeling of sad. That's maybe why you don't like it when people talk about being mad. It makes you feel all mad. Or when they talk about feeling bad, because now you feel all bad. Or when you say all negative, it makes you feel all negative. But hey, it's because it's hooking to the actual frequency of that. You're actually bringing that true frequency in the room when you express it. It has everything now. It has the ability to focus on this. Now, judgment will make this seem bad or good or greater or lesser and give it a realm of preference and ego identity that says, no, this is not good for me. But even badness doesn't have to be not good for me. It could be a feeling just like any of the other feelings, and it can be amazingly perfect in every way. And only judgment will give us the other tune, and that's our perspective, our perception. Now, when it comes to this, what I'm trying to speak about when it comes to the realms of language, what I'm saying is that these other cultures are speaking a language just much like our own. That Om Mani Padme Hum means something actually well translated into English. And it means the jewel is in the lotus. And I've said this to you before. And it means the jewel is in the lotus. Now, the jewel is your heart, or the jewel is enlightenment, and the lotus is your heart. So the lotus is your heart, and the jewel is enlightenment. So the jewel is in the lotus is what they're repeating. The jewel is in the lotus. 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 Now, they themselves were not given the judgment of their culture as we have. We judge ourselves to be oppressors and terrorizers of the world. And so we have decided our language is reflective of this, that we are the farthest away from indigenous, and that we have no cultural importance, and that we are not specifically sacred in any way, that we come from blocky white men that have been the oppressors of all reality, and so we come from the greatest evil detriment to ever scourge the surface of this planet. Now, this is not true of us, actually. If anything, we could be seen as the exact opposite frequency, but only understanding a non-duality and the releasement of all judgment to understand the perfection of motion for everything would understand this really, truly, authentically, always. Now, we could be seen as a great, amazing blessing, and we could come into a great amount of discriminating awareness as to why certain things had to be purged from the earth in the way in which they were. That frequency has overcome frequency only because frequency was much more necessary, as in the exuding of frequency to the benefit of all frequencies. And so if you have overcome another, it is true that your frequency was dominating to that frequency in a certain manner. And now it may seem as if your frequency was dominating in a way of wrongness, but actually your frequency was the one that had more importance for the continuation of that particular moment. Now you may be ended in your frequency in the very next moment, but for at least that moment, you were the one that was meant to get over on the other frequency. Now the next moment, too bad the next guy got you. And the next moment, the guy got them. And there was a crazy overlapping constant thing happening, as if there was some war occurring. This guy ran into battle. He was the first one. He killed the first man. Now the next man kills him. Now the next man kills him. Now the next man kills him. Until finally the very final man kills him. Now, all of them were simply important to getting to the next man where the final man had killed him. Now that was the true strongest frequency, the one that stood at the very end. And how long were they strongest? Well, they were only strongest for the way in which their frequency carried story into the next relation and experience, where the final frequency did this. Now, maybe his frequency made love with another frequency, combined with another frequency. Now, his frequency wasn't the forefront of these frequencies. It was actually combining of their frequency that was the forefront of their frequencies. But his frequency with that frequency was the compilation in frequency that would bring upon this particular uniqueness in frequency, which was a very necessary frequency for the growth in all the frequency. And so we may not understand how this is occurring, but certain songs had to die in order to allow other songs to come into fruition. And now this seems very terrible and judgmental and awful, but this has been happening for the entirety of everything. Why did the Hawaiian song last so long? Why did this song last so long? Why did this song last so long? And why are they continuing their lasting? Well, they're continuing their lasting because they are relevant to the acceleration and liberation of all of consciousness. No, not for any ego, culture, identity, any religion, any structure that is of a particular small frame of reference and focus when it comes to the great perspective that is that of the stars or an eternity of limitless being. No, as it turns out, yes, even though we think ourselves to be so vastly important individually as our particular egos and focus, we are quite amazingly important in equanimity with all that is entirely. So to the smallest iota of focus to the greatest of macrocosmic existence, we are, yes, very equally important in a certain sense, but we could fall away and our importance would continue on from that day as we are already fulfilling that importance. So no, we're not coming into the fulfillment of that importance. We have fulfilled it fully, completely in every moment that we exist within. So if we fall away from this moment, no problem. We have fulfilled it. If we don't fall away, great. Then we continue our fulfillment of each moment from the time in which each moment is occurring simultaneously. The future existing with itself, the past existing with itself, and the present existing with itself simultaneous. None of them overlapping or beginning each other. None of them existing exactly literally, but each one of them somehow predating or coming formerly, before, and with, and simultaneous, in all kinds of ways in which to expand the focus of what is articulating what is here happening in the most amazing orchestrating ways that could ever be possibly fathomed by any kind of human imagination or perspective. So when it comes to language, dialogue, and it comes to all kinds of things, it really is just how it makes us feel. And though we would like to say, this language has the greatest of dialogues. Well, no, at any time that you understand that you are in a sacred focus just as well as these, then the jewel is in the lotus will be just fine. Though I will say that it was an English language that did finally bring me into the language that was Om Gati Gati Pera Gati Pesan Gati Bodhiswoha, to communicate with the star being in a square triangle mudra that was the golden Buddha, the completion of Mahayana Buddhism, to the golden being on the star in this, the golden being in the sky, the golden Buddha in the sky, the golden star being. This amazing transference of energy that was here in place for thousands of years that had to happen completely randomly, because if any focus on meeting at that particular time would have been, it would not have allowed it to happen with the realm of precision, which was necessary for it to actually affect everything in a way of benefit and harmony. And so these kinds of things in focus are extremely difficult places to be and extremely hard to bring one's being into. But it takes an extreme lack of focus in a way, but an extreme focus on that focus in a certain sense. So it's a balancing and this in-between space. And so that's why we have to use the paradox to talk about it, because it's this in-between we're resting. We're not here in happiness, we're not here in sadness, we're not here in madness, we're not here in any of these feelings. We're in between all of them. And so at any moment, we could become one of them briefly in a way of balancing a movement that allows a really amazing, perfect thing to be occurring. And this is actually what's constantly always occurring, So eventually we come into these frames of focus as to where we see we are not doing, and that we have no control over anything, and that everything is moving us in a way of great perfection, though, so this will give us great ease. Eventually we see that it's for our highest benefit, and so it's easy for us to play along, for our highest personal benefit as well. Doing everything for all things is wonderful, but it is a slavery, and so eventually it becomes a hard work, and if there's not enough reward, it becomes to where we wish just for something else to do it instead, because it's very difficult. And so eventually we will see it's for our own highest benefit, in that it's actually with great ease that we are moving. And then we can release our force and our effort. Muji Baba himself says that, no, for you may have to implement effort, depending on where you are in the path. And so, yes, it becomes quite effortless and natural, the way in which we understand our ordinariness, our naturalness, that is our effortless way in which we express. But until we come into that realm and focus, we may have to implement much effort. Now that becomes because we have actually drawn ourselves back away from our present moment, and so we are in a way existing like behind ourselves in a certain sense, or in ourselves in a certain sense, hidden in a certain sense. And so to bring our expression to the forefront of our mind, it will actually take more effort. Maybe we were afraid to shout, and so we are very quiet. Now, we may need to shout, but when we first shout, we won't shout like a normal person shouts. We'll shout like a person talks, and it'll sound like, oh no, I tried to shout, but I couldn't. And then you may not want to, because now that you've tried to shout and you couldn't shout, you even feel judgmental of yourself for not being able to shout. You're like, oh, well, no, my shout sucks. And, well, if I can't do a good shout, the one time I try to do my shout, I'll just go back into not being able to shout or speak regularly. It was like a talking voice that I shouted this time. Why? Why can't I yell like this guy over here? Well, it's because it's coming, And so just keep going, and don't force. You could try to force, but it's going to be very difficult. Just kind of do it. Kind of allow it to come, like you're breathing or something. Just breathing it out. You see, if I would have forced there, it would have fucked up. I luckily allowed myself to do that in a way of Tourette's, because typically I would have tried to force something knowing I was on camera, wanting to look and exude myself in a certain way. And me expressing that to you right now kind of shamelessly or embarrassingly, or however it is, maybe there was shame, but either way I said it in bravery, and that overcomes the insecurity or the fear, and that's the reason to say it. That way that next time you'll just say it, and you don't have to be worried or afraid or anything. So you confess the entire chord shape of what was previous and what could be still here now, presently. And this can help you move this through without the needing of this observation in the future. And even if there is the need for this observation in the future, it can just always be seen as a very beautiful chord shape that expresses the amazing teaching of that learning. So this is the wisdom that came from those learnings, and many people would just go ahead and exude the final chord shape. Here I am, the perfection, but they don't tell people the chord shape of how they got to that perfection. And so if you always exude the entirety, the fullness of your expression, you exude the wisdom and compassion equally. This will take a lack of laziness and also a reason, compassion for coming into impeccability. What's the reason for this? Well, it's to make sure it never happens again, one. So it's a great self-compassion that I do this, because it helps me. But also the compassion is born from wanting to sync with all that is essentially myself, here within myself, within all that is, every other being as well, honoring every being entirely equally through existing this chord shape. You see, I've dishonored things before in the past through judging myself in a certain way. I've dishonored myself. I've dishonored all that is the moment entirely. And so I've omitted things, and I've created myself to be ways, lies, fakenesses, illusory realities, chord shapes in which we're not truly myself and of myself in a certain sense, but of course we're completely me in another sense. And in order for me to route myself in a way optimally, in a way of great efficiency, into the most quick route of liberation for myself and for all beings, freeing ourselves from suffering, taking on upon myself responsibility for my previous actions and now my future and present actions, I come into a realm of impeccability which expresses myself in a fullness that is then of the highest benefit of not only this particular myself, but also of this particular myself. When I began expressing in fullnesses in these ways, I was really doubting the way in which I was doing this. I was like, oh shoot, this is quite the burden to others. And it is quite a burden to others. But in a way that was showing me something really amazingly authentically. Because you see, some beings actually like to hear from me, and some beings do not wish to hear from me for long durations. And so I can actually speak this way and find which beings wish to be around me and which don't. And it's wonderful to find who doesn't and who does, because if I do find out who doesn't and who does, then I know who I want to be around personally, most effectively and beneficially for me personally as well. Them and me. Now I'm no longer taking away from somebody, nobody's taking away from me, and now we're both giving to one another in the way that is in the greatest equanimity, in the most amazing symbiotic relationship, you know? And that's so phenomenally amazing to me. I only want to be around beings that want to be around me genuinely. And you see, I'm a limitless channel of emptiness that never ceases. And so anybody that wants to be around me has to be willing to learn and grow, or has to be not even willing, because willing is like a servitude, but